Well, in today's video, I want to talk about hyperbole, which is yet another figure of speech. In essence, hyperbole employs exaggeration for effect or emphasis. Etymologically, it's defined as exaggerated overcasting or extravagant overshooting. So here's an example. If you step onto a scale and you exclaim, as I did this morning, "Oh my goodness, I weigh a ton," I was obviously not intending to say that I literally weigh 2,000 pounds. And nor would the phrase, "I was so surprised you could have knocked me over with a feather," be intended to convey that I weigh nothing at all. This is hyperbole. I'll give you another example. Think about an NBA commentator looking up at a game clock and then saying, "There's a world of time left in this game," when there's only 1 minute left on the game clock. Of course, he's using hyperbole to communicate that in an NBA game, a lot can happen in a mere 60 seconds. And while hyperbole is commonly used in our culture, it is virtually ubiquitous throughout the Bible. And that is particularly true of prophetic passages. So here's an example. In prophesying Jerusalem's destruction, Jesus says, "For then there will be great distress unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again." Well, in doing that, he wasn't literally predicting that the destruction of Jerusalem would be more cataclysmic than the catastrophe caused by Noah's flood. He was using apocalyptic hyperbole to underscore the distress, the devastation that would be experienced when Jerusalem and its temple were judged and destroyed. And of course, Jesus goes on to predict that immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not show his light, the stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. Again, Jesus is not predicting the eradication of the cosmos, nor is he prophesying the end of civilization. If he were, there'd been no point in warning his followers to leave Judea and to flee to the mountains. Rather, what Jesus is doing is employing hyperbolic language that is deeply rooted in Old Testament history. I'll give you an example. The prophet Isaiah used this kind of hyperbolic language when he predicted judgment on Babylon. Remember in Isaiah chapter 13, he said, "See, the day of the Lord is coming. It's a cruel day with wrath and fierce anger, to make the land desolate, to destroy the sinners within it." And then he says this, "The stars of the heavens and their constellations will not show their light. The rising sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light." Well, to those unfamiliar with biblical language, these words may well be taken to mean that the end of the world was at hand. In reality, Isaiah, of course, was prophesying that the Medes were about to put an end to the glories of the Babylonian Empire. Now, for evidence, all you need to do is think of the preceding verses, which are packed full of prophetic hyperbole. Wail. Wail, for the day of the Lord is near. It will come like destruction from the Almighty. Because of this, all hands will go limp, and every heart will melt. Terror will seize them, pain and anguish will grip them, and they will writhe like a woman in labor. They will look aghast at each other, their faces aflame. Well, even the most pedantic literalist intuitively recognizes that Isaiah is not literally intended to infer that all the hands are literally going to go limp and that every heart will literally melt. Nor is he literalistically predicting that every Babylonian face will be on fire any more than John is using wooden literalism to prophesy that Revelation's two witnesses will literally emit flames of fire from their mouths. If the Old Testament prophet Isaiah used apocalyptic hyperbole to predict the destruction of Babylon, you have to inevitably ask yourself whether it is indeed credible to suppose that Jesus, who's the heir to the linguistic riches of the Old Testament prophets, and himself a greater theologian and master of imagery than them all, should ever have turned their symbols into flat and literal prose. But that, unfortunately, is precisely what modern-day prophecy peddlers do. They transform apocalyptic hyperbole into woodenly literalistic interpretations. And as a result of that, Christ's name is dragged through the mud. I'll get into all of that and more in the future videos, but for now, let me simply say that there's much, much more. In the next video, I want to dive into the biblical use of fantasy imagery. Fantasy imagery like Dungeons and Dragons. This is where it really gets interesting, so stay tuned. I'll be back soon with another video.